Good afternoon. I'm sorry, jet-lagged here, Frenchman speaking. Had a red eye coming in, and I hope that you are doing great. It's first time in India. I'm happy to share this first day with you. You are going to be my ambassadors of India. So, I have 15 minutes and 53 slides to try to talk about the geopolitical impacts of advances in the hydrogen value chain. You think I'm joking? I'm not. There are 53 slides. Because indeed, if you want to address the complexity of hydrogen geopolitics, you need to have a truly systematic approach. That's what we try to do in the training that we do at Sciences Po, the Paris School of Political Studies, and in the other universities I teach at. So basically, this is what it looks like, a systematic approach. Basically, everything, more or less. So if you want to talk about hydrogen and climate risk, about hydrogen technologies, hydrogen economics, policy, or geopolitics, I'm your guy. Or I can also connect you to a colleague who can be your guy or lady. So a lot of things to cover and only 51 slides more to go. So I've been asked this morning, why are we having a new hydrogen hype? Because for some people here, well, hydrogen is not new to you. You are veterans. You've been here in this hydrogen industry during the previous hype 20 years ago. And some people might even have been there during the previous hype in the 1970s, I don't know. But still, this in history since the late 1900s basically is the third hydrogen hype. That's what we're living now. And the reason why this hype is actually here to stay, not like the ones before, is because one, we urgently need to change. No need to remember you guys that basically, we are living right now in 2023, the hottest year on Earth that mankind has ever known in the past 800,000 years. So, second reason is, well, hydrogen is too expensive. We know that all too well, but it's still less expensive than a 4 degrees temperature rise world. That's also a given. And people in banking, in insurance, just know that all too well, and that's why they're pushing for hydrogen. So why is there a hype because of that? Well, because of course the window to act is narrowing every single day. We have less than 10,000 days to deliver a carbon neutral world. I heard this morning someone say that, well, there would be still coal in 2070. Well, that's unacceptable climate-wise. And it's not just a matter of coal in India or coal in China, it's also coal in Germany and many other places. It's unacceptable from a climate point of view. So my generation, I'm 35 years old, well, in 2050, I will be 62 years old, so I will not be retired just yet. But my point is, our generation needs to deliver on that thing, and we need you guys, the elders, to help us throughout this change. And as of today, we have 9,574 days until January the 1st of 2050 to deliver this carbon neutral world. So there we go. It's not a lot of days. And what are we talking about when we talk about hydrogen and this change, this massive change that propels this hype that's here to stay? Well, we're talking about doing what's never been done in human history, meaning having an energy, primary or secondary, or a basket of energies that would basically supplement, or rather substitute, the previously dominating ones. This is something we've never done in history. In history, since the 19th century, every time a new primary energy has come online, this new primary energy has basically added upon the ones that were dominating before. Now, we need to do exactly the opposite, deliver hydrogen and renewables to deliver substitution. But we have a problem. In terms of policy making, there's some kind of a neural cognitive dissonance between what we need to do, and we know the data, and we know why we need to do it, and what we want to do collectively. This is what we could call in international relations the Fukuyama syndrome, for those who are familiar with the concept of the end of history, right after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. They thought at the time, they being some liberals, neoliberals in international relations, or neorealists, that basically it would be the end of history. We would have attained some kind of a pinnacle of civilization. Well, you know all too well, for the past 30 years, history has not ended at all. And we are actually writing the next chapter. So definitely, if you think in this proportion that the end of history is our generation, then effectively change is too hard for you. That is the cognitive dissonance that we have in many decision makers all around the world, being in policy or, of course, in the financial industrial world. They think they're the end of history to some extent. So change is too hard. With that said, when you look at how technologies applied to hydrogen, the whole hydrogen, PTX, PTL, and so on value chain are progressing, you realize that, of course, it's not the end of history. And you know that, of course, hydrogen, it's expensive today. It's likely to be less and less and less expensive in the coming years as we scale up, as we scale up all around the world to basically progress in terms of techs, but, of course, progress also in terms of the deployment of these new techs. And, of course, this whole thing creates, whether you're looking at it with a glass half empty or a glass half full, it creates, of course, a desire for change, and a desire for change that's basically embodied by a huge market and geopolitical opportunity, whether you're looking at it from the economics, or industry, or policy-making sector. So, if you want to know more about this, go back to this report, which was very interesting and which is going to be updated very soon by IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency. They've published this report in January 2022, and basically what it says is, if in a plus 1.5 degrees temperature rise scenario, if we manage to stay under plus 1.5, we need, of course, hydrogen, then what it means is that we would need some kind of a around 5,000 gigawatt capacity of electrolysis all over the world. And before that, more than 20,000 terawatt hours of electricity, which is basically doubling the global demand and making sure that this doubled global demand is 100% directed towards hydrogen. That's what we're talking about now in terms of magnitude, in terms of scale. This is incredible. And the fifth reason why this hype is here to stay, well, because if you want hydrogen to be part of the solution, then you have to decarbonize hydrogen itself as a value chain to begin with. And that is, of course, the first of all challenges, the mother of all challenges. Right now in the world, we have 95 million tons of hydrogen being produced every year. That was the 2022 figure. Basically, that's what the carbon footprint of these 95 million tons is. So that's huge. That's basically just as much as the civilian aviation industry. And only 0.1% of the global hydrogen production in 2022 is coming from an electricity source. And here, I'm not even discriminating whether the electricity is green or not green. It's just electricity. So, with all that said, we know why the hype is here, and we know why the hype is here to stay. Now, let's dive deep. We know that the electrolyzer manufacturing sector is nowhere where we should be in terms of manufacturing capacity. And of course, this is not meant to diss on John Cockrell or Siemens or anyone. Of course, the idea is just to say that we're not on the trajectory we need to. And that's what the data here shows. Beyond that, beyond the electrolysis manufacturing capacity, we know that whether we look at the upstream, the midstream, or the downstream sector, the investment capacity today is hugely, hugely disconnected with the needs that we would need, of course, for a hydrogen net zero trajectory in 2050. So here are some $1 billion, and that shows you the investment gap that we're living in now. So there's a huge investment gap all across the value chain. Plenty of opportunities. So in many hydrogen conferences, I hear, well, you know, it's a chicken and egg problem, so it's hard to know where to invest. You know, the risk is everywhere and so on. I'm like, no, stop that, stop that. We've got great companies producing electrolyzers. We've got great companies producing solar PV modules and so on. We've got the chicken. We can produce the egg, if you like, right? We can produce that. The egg being hydrogen, of course. So we have the egg. We have the hydrogen, we can produce it. Now what we need is people who want to eat those eggs. And we need the spoon to eat that egg, or the baguette, if you're French. Meaning the infrastructure to connect those who produce the hydrogen and those who would like to eat it, to use it in the near time. So we need some more baguette makers, so to speak. All right, and so to help with that, investment, manufacturing capacity, baguette eaters, and so on, there's a lot of strategies emerging all across the world at regional, sub-regional, national, subnational level, municipal level, and many, many others. So definitely here, that's a project I've been running for 2 years already. I routinely update it for the French Hydrogen Task Force. And basically, this is what we have now as of late September 2023. We have now 59 countries in the world that have adopted a hydrogen strategy and or a hydrogen roadmap and or a hydrogen action plan and or a hydrogen law. India has adopted all 4 of those. So that's good. France, no, not yet. So 59 countries, they're here in green on the map. And the other countries in blue, those are the countries who are working on a hydrogen strategy. And of course, some of them are very early stage. For example, in Western Africa, speaking under the control of the IAHE Secretary General here. But some others are much more advanced, like Saudi Arabia, for example. We could talk about this at length. Just to give you a comparison point, in 2019, that's where we had. That's what we had. We had only 10 countries with hydrogen strategies, and some of these strategies were very weak, actually, very, very early stage. And some more countries preparing very ambitious strategies, like Russia, for example. So definitely, there's a policy competition now, and this policy competition fuels a strategic competition. We've got now more than 100 countries involved, actively taking part in this institutionalization of hydrogen, if you like, all over the world, by either having a strategy, trying to implement it, or being currently working on one of them. So, as you can see here, the wave is pretty massive.
Mikaa.
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt. You got 1 minute?
Well, I'm 11 minutes. I thought I had 15, sir, but I won't cover the 53 slides here. Definitely, there are some key market success factors that are left unaddressed in these strategies. You can see them on the screen. We can debate them at length later on. But for my conclusion then, since I need to conclude earlier, let me finish just on talking about India for a second. 1 minute, sorry.
Take your time, okay.
Okay, okay. Well,
okay, take your time.
Don't worry, I won't be too long and I won't be boring. Thank you so much, you guys and ladies. So basically, the point is, virtually anyone on Earth can produce green or greenish hydrogen molecules, PTL, PTX, whatever. As you can see here on this map coming from IRENA, once again, the International Renewable Energy Agency, India, when it comes to offshore or onshore wind, doesn't have the best potential in the world, but there is something, of course. Then if we add solar PV, solar thermal, once again, India has a lot of potential, not the best in the world, but once again, there is something, and of course the two can be, of course, combined. So the literature is becoming quite consistent all over the world. The two places where a cost-optimal hydrogen value chain, green one, would come from would be the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, or Sub-Saharan Africa. According to IRENA, according to IAHE and many others, basically these regions, MENA and South and Sub-Saharan Africa, would be likely to provide about half of the low-cost green hydrogen by 2050 supply. And by low-cost here, we're meaning hydrogen that is sold or produced under 1.5 or 2 USD per kilogram as of 2050. So, on that front, the reason why I'm connecting this to India is the following. Who's the off-taker for that molecule? It's not going to be China. China is likely to be self-sufficient and also has neighbors like Russia, like Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, or even Pakistan, providing them with some molecules in the near or far future. So China, don't count on them. US, same thing, likely to be self-sufficient, don't count on them. So who can off-take then? Europe, Japan, South Korea. Not that much, not that many actors. So in the EU, of course, we have a huge, big strategy for hydrogen. I'm not going to go into that just because I need to, of course, go faster. But what I want to say about India is this, and the challenge is the same in Africa, it's the same in South America, it's the same in other Southeast Asian countries like, for example, Indonesia, or even in the Oceanian countries like Australia. I'm speaking, of course, under the control of our Australian representative here. There are many ways to unlock these international hydrogen trade routes. There's a number here. In the hydrogen conferences, we talk a lot about ammonia. Okay, great. But ammonia has its own problems, specifically the question of its toxicity or how hard it is to handle it. We can talk about this later, maybe. We talk about e-methanol, we talk about DME, we talk about e-natural gas, sustainable aviation fuels and whatnot. Okay, great. These are the two obvious routes. But LOHC, liquid organic hydrogen carriers, such as toluene, methylcyclohexane, benzyl toluene, and many others. There's 20 of them. We don't talk about them enough. And they're quite an interesting route to go. Liquid non-organic hydrogen carriers, such as, for example, liquid silicium hydrates. Very interesting, very early stage, I agree, but very interesting for many, many, many aspects. Solid H2 carriers, titanium, manganese, metallic hydride, or sodium borohydride, and we talked about this morning. But more importantly, and that's really the point I want to make about India, and I'm reaching 15 minutes here, semi-finite products.
Okay, and we have been overruled by the organizers.
Just one more slide about the semi-finite products. Just one more, I promise. It's a French promise. Deal with it. Semi-finite products. Is it, or are they, the best prospects for Africa and India? I've been doing field work in Angola, in Kenya, in South Africa, Namibia. I teach in Morocco as well. I've been doing field work in Egypt over the past year. In Kenya as well, I mentioned it. It's very interesting to see how everyone there has understood at this point in high policy circles that maybe the best way to get those hydrogen molecules from there to Europe or to Japan or South Korea would be not to export molecules of any kind, but would be to produce products such as steel, fertilizers, alumina, cement, even fish products which can be connected to hydrogen. And I'm not going to tell you now how, but there's going to be maybe questions. For all of these 5 reasons. And all of these 5 reasons are super, super valid. The second one may be the most important one for a country like India. There's greater in-country value out a renewable power-to-X value chain when you produce those molecules, you turn them into semi-finite product, and you export this semi-finite product rather than exporting the molecules, at least for the next 20 to 30 years. So, voila. I'll stop there. And, of course, there's many, 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 many more slides that you can tap into while you will get the slides from the organization of this meeting. Thank you so very much for your time. And now it's your time to deliver. We have, as we said, 9,574 days.
Thank you, Mikaa. That was very nice. We got extra time from others. I think I'm going to ask for a seek indulgence of you people. We may go up to 4, 15, or 20. So we have 2 more papers. And any questions on this? Because he's a lecturer. So you can't ask him questions that not intelligent. Any questions? Okay. Somebody's there?
We are talking of green hydrogen. Even if we use PV, it is having embedded carbon of 40 gram per kg of hydrogen. So if it is taking even 60 units of electricity in, say, making the hydrogen from electrolysis and initially water purification and then storage and compression, then is it really green? 60 into 40, that means around 2.5 kg per kg of hydrogen. So that is not that green. If we do it from waste, we can be rather carbon negative also. If we split, say, methane into solid carbon and hydrogen. So whatever you started with, like so much electricity will be required, so much, is it possible to have double the electricity production and all? So you have not concentrated on waste. Is it, would you like to concentrate on now?
Well, thank you. So plenty of points in one short question. I'll try to be crisp and fast. First of all, yeah, definitely electrifying all that is possible. And not only is it possible, it is desired. If you go once again to Africa, if you go once again to Latin America or other places around the world, it's not just about electrifying for hydrogen, it's also about electrifying, period. So basically here you've got a sector coupling, which from a policy point of view is extremely, from a societal point of view, is extremely important and valuable. So definitely here, yeah, the trend for electrification all around the world is not just a matter of hydrogen, it's beyond that, and that's also one of the reasons why we believe that this kind of electrifying rates is doable. Then the second part of the question, when it comes to methane and so on and so forth. Well, the more you use methane, the more you use all kinds of hydrocarbons, the more you postpone the green hydrogen or the green whatever society. So here, if you want to keep doing hydrocarbons, your only option will be two things. First of all, develop some direct air capture technology. But that is unlikely to be there until, as the literature has shown once again, until we have a carbon tax globally that's above $200 a kilo. $200 a ton. So definitely, that's the first option, unlikely to be there anytime soon. Second option, of course, CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and so on. The efficiency rate of such technologies are about 60 to 70% now. Of course, some companies manage to post 95 or 96% in laboratory experiments, but from an industrial point of view, that's where we're at. So at this point, these technologies would not help us to decarbonize that much. But if you go to Russia, if you go to France, if you go to the US, you will find a couple of companies developing plasmolysis or pyrolysis, which would enable a decarbonization of a methane or whatever hydrocarbons, hydrogen value chain of up to 95% in industrial mode, not just in laboratory. So definitely, this is the route I would like to go. I would say to answer your question.